Welcome to November 29th. It is the first Sunday of Advent, and we are now in year B. So, Happy New Year. It's a new church year, starting with the first Sunday of Advent. And we continue, this will be our last series actually. We'll go all the way through year B through Christ the King Sunday next year. And we'll have done a full we have done a full 15-year cycle on these things. So let's dig in. We're going to find ourselves in Mark. It is Advent. That means we are preparing our hearts for Christmas. In Advent meaning two things. Number one, Advent means coming or arrival, and in Advent, we are preparing. It's a season of preparation. So it's a season of preparing our hearts for the arrival of Jesus. Now, there are two Advents. There is the first Advent, which happens in when Jesus comes to Bethlehem as a baby and he's placed in a manger. But then there's also a second Advent. And we don't, usually when we think about Advent, we only think about Jesus coming as a baby to Bethlehem. But the second Advent is when Jesus returns for his bride, his church. And that's typically, at least the first couple weeks of Advent, the emphasis is not so much on preparing our hearts for the arrival of the baby Jesus, but preparing our hearts for the arrival of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, which is kind of appropriate, being that last week was Reign of Christ Sunday. So we had this idea that Jesus Christ was going to be the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and now we are preparing our hearts for the arrival of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords when he comes back to take his church home again. That's where this particular passage this morning out of Mark's Gospel, Mark chapter 13, starts. Verse 24 is where we are, and it says, and Jesus is telling the people, be on the lookout. Be on the lookout. Watch, pray, because let me even just skip back a little bit. Verse 21 of chapter 13. This is before today's official reading. Then if anyone tells you, look, here is the Messiah, or there he is, don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform signs and wonders so as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. So watch out. I have warned you about this ahead of time. And so if we're going to think about anything here in the Gospel of Mark, it's this idea of watching. Looking ahead for the arrival. And then Jesus gives his disciples some hints. Verse 24. At that time, after the anguish of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will give no light, the stars will fall from the skies, and the power of the heavens will be shaken. Then everyone will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds with great power and glory. And he will send out his angels to gather his chosen ones from all over the world, from the farthest ends of the earth and heaven. Now learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see these things taking place, you can know that his return is very near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass from the scene before all of these things take place. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear. However, no one knows the day or hour when these things will happen, and even the angels in heaven or the Son himself, only the Father knows. And since you don't know at what time that time will come, be on guard, stay alert. If there is anything that we can learn from this first Sunday of Advent is to stay on guard, be alert, for Jesus is returning. Jesus is arriving again. And so that's what we really want to focus on. You know, Jesus gives them some signs to take a look at. And I'll never forget, it was Christmas several years ago, and we were driving to my mom and dad's from upstate New York, and we were all along the thruway we were driving along the New York State Thruway, and the moon came up over the mountains, and it was big and it was red. And I remember our daughter just really got concerned. She's like, Jesus is coming back. Jesus is coming back. And I think in some ways, it was cool that she was alert to some of the signs. But and I think, but it's going to happen when our focus is on something else. And there are so many things that can take our focus off of Jesus and get us away. And I mean, you think about, I remember during the Gulf War, I remember thinking, wow, we're so focused on that. What if Jesus comes back during this time? And there's so many things, like even now, whether our focus might be on a presidential election, or the aftermath of the presidential election, or the coronavirus, or any number of things. But the thing here is to remember to stay alert, stay on guard, because Jesus is coming back again. We need to be ready for his second arrival, his second coming. Because, as I was saying this morning, one of the things that the first Sunday of Advent talks about is hope. For those who have trusted in Christ, Jesus' second advent will be hope realized. For those whose hope is not in Christ, whose faith is not in Christ, Jesus' second advent will be hope lost. And so my word to you this morning, this afternoon, is to be on guard. What does it say again? It says, no one knows. No one knows. No one will. If someone tells you they know, run, because they don't know. Since you don't know when the Son of Man will return, stay on guard. Stay alert. Stay on guard. Stay alert.